Hello and welcome to the Bout of Insanity podcast. This is episode 1. I have tried now many times to create an episode, all of which have so far been failures. There's always been something wrong with the software I'm using or the content itself. But with any luck, I will be able to finally upload this. This podcast will mostly be about history and or politics, usually in the same episode. Now, I will talk about some of my other interests, personal interests as well. So if you get too used to history and politics and then I start going on about something completely different, I am not being held captive or anything like that. So, on the agenda today, there is Parliamentary against a constitutional system, which I will be discussing, the Electoral College in America, and historical figures and heroes. Now, in America, the presidents are voted in not necessarily by the people. You see, they have the Electoral College, where delegates of each state vote for a president. So, the more population a state has, the more delegates they will have. So, in Florida, there are about 29 Electoral College delegates because it's quite a large state with quite a large population, whereas somewhere like Wyoming only have a few. It's designed to try and represent the smaller states and the larger states fairly. So say the Republicans won Florida, as they have done these past 2 elections, they will have 29 delegates voting for, or should be voting for, the Republican president candidate. But you see, that's not always the case, because there are rogue delegates, and in most states, in the vast majority of states, there's no law saying that these delegates can't just vote for who they want instead of what the people decided. Now, this was originally intended to combat a populist figure who is going to destroy the republic, but nowadays it has a lot less potency because people are now educated politically than what they were in the 1790s. So, need for these rogue delegates. Now, that's not the only problem with the Electoral College. You see, it has happened 4 times throughout history where the winner of the presidency did not receive the popular vote, and it happened twice this century, once in 2000 and again in 2016, because although Hillary Clinton won slightly more votes than Trump, I think it was something like 7 million votes, yeah, only slight 7 million, but Trump won the 270 delegates needed to become the president, so it didn't matter. Looking in, it seems very anti-democratic, or undemocratic, sorry, but if you think about 4 times in a 300, 200-year-old system, it's not that much. I mean, twice were in the 1800s, one in 1876. Now, it can be argued that, 4 times in history, it doesn't need to be torn down completely. But it is quite unfair most of the time, let's be honest, because it's designed, or not necessarily designed to, but it has created, or helped to create, the two-party system. Because third parties, like the Green Party or Libertarian Party, they will never win a state. It will never happen. Not when the Republicans and Democrats are both powerful. Maybe one day one or both of their influence will fall down, but that will only happen if they're replaced by another big party. So it will always be a two-party system. In 2000, in George W. Bush versus Al Gore, the presidential election, and in Florida, Bush won by 537 votes, which was 9/1000%. I will say that again, 9/1000%. So we are talking very minuscule numbers. And because of the system in Florida, Bush won all of the delegates. In some states it's more fair, in some states it's more proportional, but not everywhere. So Florida's 537 votes lead for Bush won him the election. It was very close, and those 29 or so delegates won the election and changed history forever. Because Al Gore was quite eco-friendly, and he was quite, I believe he was quite left-wing, quote, for a Democrat. But the thing is, it can be argued that this is evidence that it is not actually a two-party system, because the Green Party specifically would have stolen some votes from Al Gore. Maybe it's just Democrat voters. Some Democrat voters didn't turn out to vote, and then that cost them the election. But it's, to me, much more likely that the few who would have tipped it over voted for the Greens instead in a protest vote. So, does the Electoral College need reforming, is the question. And I would argue yes. I mean, we no longer have a need for rogue delegates. Some in 2016 voted for Bernie Sanders instead of Hillary Clinton to become president, even though he was already out of the race. Now, does that need to happen? Well, no. Because the people nowadays, they know what's harmful and what's good for them, mostly. I say mostly. And furthermore, the Electoral College itself, the way it works, the way the entire presidential system works, it's all run by the two main parties, and it's powered by money. So if this system is so undemocratic and so unfair, so controversial of a subject, why hasn't it been changed yet? Well, this brings me on to my next point about constitutional or parliamentary sovereignty. Which of those is the best system? I would argue a parliamentary system, or something of the like, because especially in the USA, it is very hard to amend the Constitution. If you need to amend something, you need to jump through many loops, you need to do many near impossible tasks, such as getting 2/3 of the Senate and the House of Representatives to agree on something, and especially nowadays, that's such a Herculean task, it's not even imaginable. So take the Second Amendment, for example, the right to bear arms. Now, I'm not getting into whether I agree with this or not, but the point I'm making is that it has not been changed yet, despite coming under a lot of scrutiny, especially in recent years. But it's not going to change, probably on this half of the century, at least. Because the Constitution is so hard to amend. I mean, you can say, oh, but the Constitution itself, a lot of it is very vague, so it wouldn't necessarily say exactly what to do in what situation. But I don't think that's enough, to be honest with you, because parliamentary systems offer fluidity. So, for example, Neville Chamberlain, our Prime Minister from 1937 to 1940. Now imagine if there was 4-year-long terms, and that was in the Constitution like it is in America. To have Chamberlain in for another year without Churchill would be catastrophic for the war effort, for the war industry, for the morale of the country. It will just... I think everything will fall apart, to be honest. I'm not hugely anti-Neville Chamberlain, I just think Churchill is who we needed at the time, and he was absolutely brilliant. I mean, there's no saying that he wasn't a hero, but people saying he's a mass murderer, genocidal maniac, imperialist, white supremacist. I mean, he wasn't. If you actually look at the things he believed in, other than supporting the empire, which we already had, well, yes, he's a early 20th century conservative, like, of course. He's going to be in favour of the empire. But what he was more in favour of was protection of tribal rights and people of the empire. He wasn't actually, as some even claim, worse than Hitler or the same as Hitler, because it would have gone a lot differently if he actually thought that minorities were subhuman. They would have been exterminated just as the Jews were in Germany. I mean, there's no comparing the two. But anyway, I got off topic. So, if we had had Neville Chamberlain in for another year, we would have been screwed as a country. Maybe even lost the war by that point, who knows. But because of our parliamentary system and our even lack of a single constitution, it's just the UK Constitution, quote, is just pretty much a load of laws. So the quote UK Constitution is just a load of different documents and laws and precedents which may be taken into account and maybe not. I mean, as we saw in late 2019, just before the election in the UK, things were in absolute chaos because there were loads of constitutional crises on whether it was legal to prorogue Parliament. Turned out it wasn't, so they went back. Then, do they have to call a general election when it's only been 2 years? Like, all sorts of things. It was just absolute chaos. Now if we had a constitution, we could, a single document, we could say, right, sorry, we have to, it's advised that we have another election in 2 years' time, and no, it wasn't illegal. We didn't have to go through a massive court process, and it would be over in about 4 minutes. But I think the advantages given by a parliamentary system are underrated, and like, yes, the constitutions, sovereign constitutions, or codified constitutions, they're meant to be hard to amend, that's the point. I mean, stuff like the Bill of Rights, especially, like Article or Amendment 1, every man has a right to his speech or something, I don't know the quotes, but things like that, you can't take that away no matter what you do. Because theoretically, in the UK, if Parliament wanted to say, I don't really like the opposite side, I am going to pass a law saying, for example, the Labour Party is being dissolved, everyone who supports Labour will be sent to extermination camps. Theoretically, that could happen in the UK. Notice how I say theoretically. But in the USA, that will never happen unless by force or some military takeover or something. That will never happen because of the Constitution, and the Supreme Court will say, now hang on a minute, this clearly goes against this amendment, this one and this one, so we're not going to allow you to do anything. So there's pros and cons for both. But as I said before, it offers a lot more fluidity. So the Constitution, for many presidents and many, well, not necessarily the Constitution, but the constitutional rights and practices for example, Barack Obama, by the end of his term, of his last term, he just had to put everything through an executive order, because nothing would get past the House of Representatives, which was now in Republican hands, and nothing would get past the Senate, so he just had to kind of usher in things through the side doors. And it's not just Obama, I mean, Trump did it, Bush did it, Clinton did it, Biden will do it. I mean, every president does. I mean, when they become a lame duck, as they say, when their power is dwindling at the end of their terms, it just happens. But there's always a constant struggle in America there's always a constant power struggle, because the House of Representatives will say, Senate can't do this because we can do this, look at this article in the Constitution, and then the Senate will say, actually, we're the one being constitutional, you're not, and then it all just gets muddled because of the vagueness of the Constitution. So, well, it's sort of like in World War II, where Roosevelt wanted to go to war, but the House of Representatives didn't. I'll just say the House. The House didn't. And only the House have the ability to actually declare war in America. So Roosevelt was stuck for ages trying to get the House to try and get the US to go to war in Europe. Now, although the President is Commander-in-Chief, just as the Queen is, or the Monarch is in the UK, they can't actually declare war. So as I say, he was just waiting around for something to happen, and then, by some miracle, Japan happened to attack Pearl Harbor. So, it's kind of with everything in America. If it works well, it works really well. But if it's not perfect, it's terrible. Because I've probably said this about 40 times now, but the flexibility which a parliamentary system gives, I think, is just, it overrules everything. Because, I mean, obviously the UK hasn't descended into an absolute monarchy or a fascist or communist or socialist or anarchist, whatever you want to say, state. Like, that hasn't happened. Now, if anything, we have equal or more rights in the UK with a parliamentary system. So I think I've done enough on this. Now, I have kindly been sponsored for this episode, and this is the... I have kindly been sponsored for this episode, and that is down to Luke Alex Music. Now, this musician is an upcoming star, I will tell you. He has just released, about a month ago, his 4-song EP, Sometimes Things Hurt. Now, it's really good, I must say. There's different genres, there's different songs. Now, it's not depressing as the title suggests, but it's more, it connects with people, and he does what he does to make other people feel better. He works very hard, and he's very passionate for what he does. Trust me, I know. I speak to him, and if you search for Luke Alex on Spotify, you will probably find his account. On there are a collection of original songs, many of which were published this year, and you will be among the first people to watch it or listen to it. Not the first people, but he is very much a hidden gem. He's just waiting for his popularity to spike, and then you will say in 10 years' time that you were among the first to listen to him. So I would definitely recommend you go check his channel out. On YouTube he is, again, Luke Alex. His Instagram, if you can't find his accounts when you search on that, his Instagram is Luke_Alex_music, and then there he has a linked tree with everything you need to know. And beyond everything, I'm gonna be honest, you will find anything which you want to know about him. So, I say thank you to my sponsor again, Luke Alex Music. Definitely go check him out. Now, historical heroes, and I guess I'll include villains as well, just to be fair. God, this episode has not been very long, has it? It's only been about 25 minutes, thereabouts. But anyway, historical heroes and villains. What makes a hero? You can say, oh, it's bravery and chivalry and everything like that, but I would argue it's more a sacrifice, because it's stereotypical. I don't know too much about it, but supposedly knights were very chivalrous and honourable, and same with bloody samurai. Like, oh yes, do everything for honour and for my kin and country and all of that, but we don't know every single knight's name to ever live. We don't know every battle they've ever been in, so I will argue it's more sacrifice which makes a hero, and obviously their sacrifice is paying off, because we wouldn't know about them if it didn't. But take Horatio Nelson, or commonly Lord Nelson. He's one of my favourite historical figures, because it involves both naval battles and the Napoleonic Wars, which are two of my favourites, like eras and wars and types of battle. But anyway, he obviously died on his HMS Victory in 1805 on the Battle of Trafalgar. Now, from that point on, he and that battle and his ship are forever known. Like, everyone in England, or Britain should I say, loved him afterwards. Because before, they were sort of poking fun at him and being disrespectful, like painting his fiancée as being like stupendously fat or things like that. But after his death, and after his stunning victory against the Spanish and the French combined fleet, everyone admired him, and they made him lord after his death, which was quite unusual, which just shows our complete infatuation with them for the time and today. Now, did he have his mishaps? Of course he did. He had an affair with Lady Hamilton, almost certainly. I mean, it's all a bit suspicious, especially when her daughter is named Horatio Nelson, like after him. So, so yes, he most likely had an affair, but I mean, that's not really the worst thing he's done. He also illegally hanged someone in Naples, so I think in 1799 or something like that. But he's still regarded as a hero, nevertheless. So, as long as someone does the right thing for the time, I mean, yeah, asking for slavery not to be a thing today, like, yeah, that's just a given. But you know, it's for the time, what people do at the time, which makes them heroes, not by today's standards. Because take like Friedrich the Great or someone. I mean, conquering all his enemies around him made Prussia incredibly powerful, one of, if not the most dominant power in Europe. He deserves to be respected and commemorated in Prussia, but is that necessarily a good thing? to conquer everyone else and impose years and years of hard war over people, including your own people. No, not really, but he's still considered a hero because he made his country great, so they call him great. It's like, and so-called racist people today, like I've already mentioned Winston Churchill, like, yeah, by today's standards, of course he is. No one denies that. Like, I don't know, Gandhi going around saying, oh, Indians are superior to Africans. I mean, that's racist, but people still like him because he did the right thing. He set India free peacefully, and that is good. No matter who you are, that's a good thing that he did it quite peacefully and set it forward quite a bit. So yeah, it's foolish to look at people of the past, of today's perspective. I mean, that's like during the Reformation, English people and the government going, oh, we are no longer teaching any of our history because they were all Catholics, they were all Norse, they were all pagans, they were all Celts, horrid people with horrid business. But none of them are Protestant, so we're not going to do it. And Protestantism is the right way to do it. The same thing is happening now. If they're not literally postmodern leftists, they get ruined for it. And those same people are sometimes the people who benefit most from it. I mean, what I mean by that is Cecil Rhodes, who invested a lot of his money into Oxford University, and he has a statue of him in Oxford University, and some people want to take him down because he was racist, which I'm sure he was. I mean, I think he was a Victorian diamond trader, so yeah, that's a given. He's a Victorian white businessman in Africa. Yeah, might be a little racist by today's standards, but are those people protesting to take his statue down, are they going to take the proportionate money out of Oxford University and give it back to Rhodes' family or descendants? Well, no, they're not. They don't want to do that. Same with Edward Colston. Yeah, he was a terrible person. He had a terrible trade of the slave trade, but it was legal at the time. At the time, no one batted an eye, sadly. And that's a bad thing. I wish the slave trade never happened, like a normal human being would. But what did he do with the wealth he got? He pumped it into Bristol. He funded hospitals, orphanages, schools. He built up Bristol, where he lived and probably grew up. His statue is up there as a symbol of his philanthropy, not him being a slave trader. Like, he's commemorated because it's right next to the charity headquarters, which he also set up. I mean, I don't know what the charity does, I will admit, but people should be allowed to celebrate our heroes and figures from the past, no matter what we do today. I mean, nowadays, it's obviously disadvised to go to war in the first place, and it's only seen as a necessity, but Alfred the Great, did he have to kick all the Vikings out? Well, no, he didn't have to. It'd probably be a lot more stable if he didn't go to war at all and made some sort of peace treaty. But he's not remembered for stuff like that, he's remembered for clashing with the Vikings and being king of what? Wessex, or Sussex, sorry, I think. I'm very bad at geography, don't question it, if none of it makes sense. So what I'm getting at is, celebrate our heroes, because they did bring about change, mostly good change. Like, what, Amelia Pankhurst, is she the one who jumped in front of the king's horse, the suffragette? I mean, the suffragettes were white supremacists. They didn't allow blacks into their supporters. That might have been only in America, I'm not sure. Probably was, because we were white for the time, obviously, and stories of African American troops stationed in Britain where they were actually invited round for tea by the white people here, and they were told by their officers, don't go because you're race mixing. Again, compared to the time, that's why they're up there. That is history. It's looking at people from the past with the context of the past. There's no point going, you can't say, like, economically, oh, he should have done this and then we would have been super rich, or he should have gone that way for the Northwest Passage, he's an idiot. It's the context of the past which matters. That is history. It's not the study of the past, it's the study of people. I'm not sure how long I'm going to go on for. I didn't mention one historical villain, I will say, but I don't think I really need to go because I have a lot of editing to do. So I will thank you for listening to the Bout of Insanity podcast. Again, thank you to our sponsor Luke Alex Music, Luke Alex on Spotify and YouTube, and goodbye.